Hi, I'm Greg Dell with Dell Disability Lawyers, here again with Alex Palomara. And Alex, we always do these tips videos, and today I want to talk about tips for people that are considering filing for either short-term or long-term disability benefits, and a lot of the questions and issues that we get around the people who are, still working obviously, but considering filing. So the first question I want to address is the most important thing in a disability claim in the beginning is to get a copy of your policy. But there's issues that come up with seeking your policy because employees take a position of, I'm hesitant to tell my employer what's going on, but maybe they're going to fire me.
Right.
So what do you suggest to people about how to go about getting a copy of their policy if they have any concerns about their employer finding out about what's going on?
Right. The best way to get your policy, you obviously have to go to human resources. So you can go to the insurance company. The insurance company are going to point you to the plan administrator. Typically, the employer is the plan administrator. So human resources are the people that have to get you the policy. Now, most people don't want to tip off the fact they might be stopping work pretty soon. They don't want to be fired, don't want to be replaced or whatever, because that could hurt their disability claim and hurt their treatment, hurt their health insurance or whatever. So what I typically tell these potential clients to do is go to the human resources and say, I'm working with a financial advisor to make sure I'm fully covered under different insurance policies. Can I get a copy of my life insurance policy, my health insurance policy, my short-term disability insurance policy, my long-term disability insurance? Just ask for all the policies. So you can kind of cover the fact that you might be filing a claim for disability benefits. So just say, I'm working with a financial advisor. I want to make sure I'm properly covered under various insurance policies. Can I have copies of all my policies? They should be able to email them to you in PDF format. If they don't, it's kind of crazy because most companies nowadays have everything in PDF. So it should be a quick and easy email to you. And once you get them, you can more than happy to send them to us and more than happy to go over them with you so you know the ins and outs of your policies.
The other thing is I want people to know, first of all, we're talking about group policies,
Correct.
which is when you would go to your employer. If you have a private individual policy that you bought on your own from an agent or through an organization, then you can go straight to the insurance company. They're actually going to charge you $25 or $50 to get a copy of the policy. And so then you can go to the insurance company. But if you have a group employer, you go to your employer is required to give it to you. A lot of people in larger companies have intranets, which is they can log on to something and download potentially the policies. A lot of times they may be known as the plan documents, but people say, what does this look like? Because commonly people get confused and they send us a summary, which is 2 pages.
Right.
And what they should know is that the typical short or long-term disability plan document is going to be a minimum of 20 pages. So if you're getting a 2-page document, that's not the plan. And there's a lot of language in the plan, which is why we always offer this free consultation and review where we'll go through the whole policy and let people know. But the 2 pages that HR may send you is not the policy. So I want people to...
Right, and they send it to you thinking it is the policy. And it kind of blows my mind whenever someone in human resources says, here's your policy. And it's like, they should be better trained sometimes. But you have to go back and say, that's not my actual policy. That's a summary of my policy. I need the actual policy that gives me all the terms and conditions.
And then also with private disability policies that people bought, they'll get a plan summary or a policy summary that's a 1-pager. That's not the disability policy either. That's just a summary of some of the basic terms that are in your policy. Okay. The next biggest issue about people considering filing for disability is medical treatment. Like, do I have to be undergoing treatment or should I stop work and then seek treatment? So how does someone balance continuing to work and seeking medical treatment for what they think is going to be a disability claim?
The one thing people don't want to do is stop work cold turkey without seeing a doctor first and getting a doctor to pull you out of work. It happens a lot, and I do my best to fix those files, but it's hard to prove that you're disabled. If you stop working on May 1st, it's hard to prove that you're disabled as of May 1st if you only got treatment as of July 1st, because sometimes it's hard to get treatment for whatever your specialist that you need to see. It might be a couple months before you actually get into the doctor. And you say, doctor, I'm having these issues. Oh, you're disabled. But how can I prove that the person was disabled 3 months prior? So the thing you have to do before filing any claim, you have to get your ducks in a row. And ducks in a row include getting treatment. You need to go see the various doctors. If you're suffering from eye condition, a back condition, you have to go to your primary care physician, maybe be referred out to a specialist and see the specialist. And you might have to suffer it and continue working for a couple more weeks or a couple more months, but you need to have your claim properly documented, and properly documented is with proof, and proof is medical records. So you have to have medical support. Having a doctor pull you out of work is icing on the cake where the doctor says, I agree, you shouldn't be working right now. You can't do that heavy-duty job with your back the way it is, so I'm going to tell you to stop working.
Now, we're not talking about someone who has an accident because
Correct.
obviously you can't predict that, and then you're going to end up going to the doctor based upon the event, or a very significant diagnosis of some kind of disease that you weren't anticipating, that you basically had almost no symptoms, and then all of a sudden you show up at the doctor. We're talking more along with people, which is the vast majority of claims of someone who has a chronic pain condition, a chronic psychiatric condition, chronic long-standing medical conditions, even if chronic is in the sense of it's been going on for 3 months, because sometimes people wake up and they go to get out of bed and they're like, shit, my back hurts. And then it progresses to the point where they're like, I can't sit at work, and even when I am sitting, I can't focus on my work. So you know you have that problem. A lot of times people battle through their problems for weeks or months before they even show up at the doctor. And they're like, I can't work at all. And then they just, they try to file a claim. But another thing to do for people who do put off the doctors is to go out and use your sick or vacation time and seek treatment before you're, just stopping work or saying I'm done and then filing a claim. So that's another thing that can be done as a strategy, is to say, look, I'm calling in sick, or start calling in sick multiple days, so the employer knows if they try to terminate you, you look back at your records and be like, yeah, this person was complaining of the same symptoms before as they are after. So that's a really big challenge. What about the fact of the argument of the person who they're listening to this video and they go, look, I'm going to treat for 3 months or 4 months or whatever, but the disability company is going to say, how did you keep working for those 3 months, and now all of a sudden you can't work?
Well, I like when the insurance company denies claims for that reason, because I think it's the worst excuse for denial in the history of denial. Just because someone toughed it out, and sometimes the people are Superman, because I make the point to the insurance company, this guy could have made the claim 3 months prior. You're correct. You know what he did? He saved you three months of disability benefits. Maybe it's $1,000 a month. Maybe it's $10,000. He saved you $30,000. You should be thanking him, not questioning why was he being a superhero and working 3 months further. So whenever I see that argument, it always gets under my skin. But yes, it's an argument that they make, so you have to be aware of that they could try to utilize it against you. But if you are properly documenting your claim and your medical records, it should be clear in there that you're suffering from something, and we have a lot of complaints about it, and maybe it progresses to the point where you stop work. But it is a concern. They use that argument, and I'd like to shut down that argument quickly.
Well, you make a great point to say we toughed it out and you're not going to punish me for toughing it out. That's what I had to do. But the other point that you brought up in there is how important the medical records must be documented about the complaints. And another tip for someone who's considering filing is you need to go into that doctor or doctors with a list of all of the things that you're having trouble with, and tell the doctor, because these are usually digital records, please include in my records, whether you read it in while I'm standing right here, because a lot of doctors dictate, or they take a sheet of paper from you, please get all of these troubles that I'm having, work or non-work related, into your record, because if it's not there, when the disability company gets this file months after you file for disability, because that's how long it takes by the time they get all the records, if those records don't say good details, then you're going to have a hard time getting that claim approved. All right. The other issue for people who want to file is they usually, unfortunately, call and go, yeah, I just told them yesterday I'm only a day past the day I thought I couldn't work, so I already called the disability company. Why would you tell someone not to do that? And how long on average can a person wait before they have to notify their disability company of a claim?
Well, again, you want to have your ducks in a row. If you tell the insurance company you're filing this claim, they're going to send you forms out immediately and kind of demand them back. And I've seen them deny cases with, they send the person forms and request, they send, request for authorizations or whatnot. The person doesn't respond within 30 days, and they deny the claim, which is kind of a pain in the rear end, because then we have to do an appeal or try to reopen the application process somehow. So it's best to have your ducks in a row and getting those medical records together. Getting your doctors on board and whatnot, because you want to have, when you apply for benefits, you want to give it to the insurance company on a silver platter. You want it with a bow on top. Here's the application documents you sent me, completely filled out. Here's the attending physician statement, completely filled out. Here's multiple attending physician statements. Here's all my medical records. Everything you possibly want for this claim is here right now. The insurance company has the right to do their own investigation and use those authorizations to request their own records, because maybe they think that you're leaving records out, so they want to go to all the different providers and maybe find a loophole to deny your claim, and they can do that. They can do their own investigation, but what we always do for applications is just give it to them on a silver platter and say, here it is, approve my claim as quickly as possible, approve this claim as quickly as possible, because everything's right here and there's enough here to prove that this person's disabled.
And the other thing that a lot of claimants have concerns is they think if they don't tell them until, like, say 90 days after their date of disability, that they're going to lose 3 months of benefits. Well, two things about that. Number one, you almost always have an elimination period. If it's short term, it might only be 7 days, but if it's long term, it's always going to be at least 90 days or at least 180 days. So between 90 to 180 days. So it doesn't matter anyhow, and the frame of mind is always that say, well, I didn't know if in those 90 days I might get better, or 180 days I might go better. So why would I tell you within 30 days of stopping work that I'm filing a claim?
Right.
Because I might get better. So, but people get nervous and think, wow, if I don't tell them on day one of my date of disability, then I won't be eligible for benefits unless they consider the day that I tell them. That's not how it works. I'm not telling someone to wait a year,
Right.
because some policies require it to be done sooner, and we'll evaluate that for them and look at it. But you will get back all of those back benefits regardless of the time that you tell them, as long as you tell them in a timely manner that doesn't blow some kind of condition in the policy.
The policies give parameters of when you're supposed to give them notice and then when you have to give them the proof of your claim. But typically you have a good amount of time, a window, to give them notice and then provide them proof. You know, notice might be, they might want 15 days notice, something like that, but most policies state they can, within a reasonable time period.
Right.
There's a second sentence that says within a reasonable time period, and most proof of loss and everything, you have up to a year under most long-term
Right.
disability insurance policies, but there's really no reason to delay that long.
Right.
But you want to just have enough time to build your case. So give them notice. You can give them notice in a couple weeks or a couple months, but have time to build your case before, so that you're ready to give them on a silver platter. That's just such key.
So, I mean, in summary, these are all tips that we've been talking about for things to do prior to filing for disability, but the big takeaway from this is that you got to have really good documented medical records if you want to give yourself the best chance to get approved. And we obviously help people apply for benefits. We've represented people 2 years before they've even filed for disability, and it's a unique but regular service that we do in the disability insurance world to get people through, because that application that you submit is the framework of everything that's going to come later. We are like bound by that, and if you, even choosing the date of disability is critical. There's so many things that go into that, and you really have the best chance of getting approved if you do everything, like you said many times, get your ducks in a row, then you got a great chance. And we can look at any claim and say, yeah, I think this one's going to get approved, or no, it's not, and save someone a lot of money in further attorney's fees down the road, and a lot of delay in potentially if you don't get approved, because when these people stop working and their whatever other funds they have, you know, continuing vacation time or savings, we understand that money's going to run out, and you need this benefit. So time is of the essence in these things.
But you want to avoid a denial, because if you rush an application, you get denied. It's going to take months upon months to get get approved or get reapproved, because an appeal takes a long time to put together. And then once you file the appeal, the insurance company has up to 90 days to review your appeal. So if you get denied from the start, it's going to be a longer period of time. So it's better not to rush it, because ultimately you could, you know, do yourself a disservice and make it 6 months or a whole year before you get any benefits. Do it right the first time.
Well, these are great tips for someone out there who's considering filing for short-term or long-term, or whether you're on claim already. Feel free to call Alex or myself. No matter where you live in the country, we will immediately provide you with a free phone consultation.